This is how we're going to start. So I'm introducing Nikki here.
Okay.
Hi, Nikki.
Okay.
So Nikki, you are currently, right now, you're talking to 7.8 billion people.
Okay.
Are you nervous yet? Just a little?
I mean, a tad, yeah.
Okay. All right. So I operated on Nikki over 1.5 years ago, and we did
a full facial rejuvenation, face and neck.
Okay. So, Nikki, what brought you into the office? Like, you were probably thinking about something for a while, right?
I was.
Talk us through the story, okay? Like, what you were thinking, what you were feeling, and then you decided to pick up the phone and how you got here. What's the story?
Well, my story with you is I was starting to feel like I didn't look like myself anymore. I looked tired. I looked kind of haggard, and I just didn't feel like me. My outside didn't match my inside. I've got 2 young children. I'm an older mom, but we're super active, and I just didn't like how I was looking. So I reached out to you. The first thing was I liked the oral sedation. I'm not a big fan of going under anesthesia. I don't handle it well.
Have you had anesthesia before me?
Yes.
No, and you just didn't like the feeling?
I don't like the feeling. I'm sick for days. The recovery is terrible, and it wasn't something that I was comfortable doing. So that in itself, the idea that I could do this, I knew I could handle it as far as pain-wise. That wasn't an issue. So that was the very first thing that brought me. I was like, he can do it under oral sedation. Good. Second thing is when I went through, I looked at all of the pictures. All of the pictures of your before and after, they looked like themselves, but better. They didn't look strange. There's a lot of focus in the media now of women getting a lot of work done, and they don't look the same anymore. That was my biggest fear. I didn't want to look like a different person. I wanted to look like who I'd always looked like, but all of a sudden overnight, I wasn't looking like that person anymore. So that was what I loved about your work. Your work, they just looked refreshed. They didn't look different. They didn't have that, what has she had done kind of thing that you see. So I loved that. Then I picked up the phone. First person I talked to was Barb. Nowadays, you call doctor's offices. You're lucky if you even get a person on the phone. Barb and
That's kind of cool, because I didn't know about that, because I don't end up calling on doctor's offices.
No, you don't. You get in line, someone will call you back, you push a button for this, you might get a nurse hotline that will call you back to make an appointment. Barb answered, I think we talked for 35 minutes.
Cool.
And I mean, it was like I was talking to somebody that I'd known my whole life. She laid it all out for me. She told me how it would be, what the procedure was like. She was very straightforward. We clicked, and I was like, okay. I booked that day. I wanted to book. Came in for my appointment, met you. We clicked.
We rocked and rolled.
Yeah, we totally clicked. I felt 100% comfortable with you. Again, I looked at your pictures of the previous patients, and I loved the work. The work looked like they weren't done. They looked refreshed. They looked younger, but they still looked like themselves. And that was my biggest concern. I didn't want to walk out of here and look done, like a different person. And I didn't. I mean, I will say my husband was very hesitant because he had the same concerns.
I'm going to ask you that.
Yeah.
So you hit a nail on the head. Yeah. Because I remember you, and your husband was completely not on board.
He was not on board. He was not on board. He didn't think I needed it. We've been married 19 years. We have 2 young children.
So can I divulge something?
Sure.
Or actually, I'm going to throw you under the bus. And you have the right not to answer my question.
How old am I?
How old are you?
I'm 52. I'm 52.
What do you think you look like?
I would say 36, somewhere in there. 36. I would say under 40.
Oh yeah.
I mean, but I was feeling it before. I was getting gaunt, and I was having a lot of sagging and a lot of jowling. And I've gotten Botox for the last I haven't gotten it. I started Botox at 40. So I hadn't, a lot of people are starting it in their 20s. I didn't do that. That wasn't a thing back then. But yeah, my husband was 100% against it. He was worried I was going to look weird. He was worried that it's your face. What if you don't like it? Then what do we do? He wasn't on board with it. And I really had to do some convincing, a lot of convincing. And I can tell you this, within 48 hours of my surgery, I mean, I still was bruised a little bit, which I didn't have a whole lot of crazy bruising. Within 48 hours, I still had my stitches in. I was still swollen. I woke up, I'm, sitting propped up in the bed, and he looked at me and he's like, "You're going to look amazing." And that was it. I mean, and I knew, because he's my biggest fan, but he'll also tell me the truth. He's not going to sugarcoat anything. But he looked at me and he's like, "I can already tell you're going to look amazing." And that right there was like, oh, thank God. Because, I want my husband to love the way I look too, as much as I do. I didn't, people, you say you don't want to do it for other people. I didn't do it for other people. Did it for me. But, I love
it's
my
important.
husband. It is important. I want my husband to be like, "Oh, you look great," not, "Whoa, what did you do?"
Well, I think you hit a nail on the head. I was just, for the sake of transparency, we didn't record that part, but I was just talking to Nikki before this about one of my other patients, and I was telling you how her mom was skeptical, right? Having that support system is an important thing.
It's very important.
It's not that we based our entire life on it, but having that feedback is an important aspect.
It is, because it's going into any kind of surgery, especially this is
completely elective.
Completely elective, and you want to make sure you're making the right choice. And if you don't have support around you, sometimes you can be, you can get a lot of different things in your head, and you can be scared to do it, or you might end up in the wrong place or in the wrong hands. Someone can talk you into doing things that you might not need to be doing. And so if you don't have support, and you might not end up in the right place in the right hands as well. So that's kind of how I feel.
Now, since you when you were talking, you kind of went through this in a very logical way. I'm going to hit the next little section here. So one of the things that you just told me about, so there's a lot of things as we're recording this journey, you're sharing for the camera, but I'm also learning about myself. And when you guys tell me things, I'm making mental notes about how to even be better. Okay. So, one of your primary decision-making criteria was the fact that you had oral sedation.
Yes.
Okay. This is how I do 99% of it. Okay. Now, when I said, "Hey, I'm going to do this," okay, I'm sure that there was some degree of anxiety on your part about what it's going to feel like. Even though you told me right now, this is what I wanted, and this is when the going gets to the point where the ship's at port, there's a little anxiety, right?
Absolutely.
What were you thinking about? What did you feel during surgery? And would you do it again that way? I mean, we'll talk, because every woman, okay, so you were prepared. There's a ton of women, when I tell them oral sedation, local anesthesia, their eyes get about this big. And they're like, "You can do that like that?" And this is what I prefer. So, I can tell them, but being a person who had it.
I think the oral sedation for me was 99% of the deciding factor, other than your work, of course. I mean, if I wasn't happy with your work, then it would have been, non-negotiable. But I knew that it was something that I didn't want to go under. I did not want to go under. I don't feel safe when I go under anesthesia. I don't like how I feel afterward for days. It scares me, and I have small children, and to me, the idea, I'm like, why would I go under voluntarily for something that's elective? It's one thing if it was, a necessary surgery, but to me, that was a non-negotiable. I was not going to go under and risk all of the things that could go wrong for something that to me was elective.
Okay, let me caveat something for the 7.8 billion people on Earth. So I want to say something just for clarity's sake, so that I don't get hate mail and all that kind of stuff. Local anesthesia and general anesthesia are perfectly equivalent in safety profile.
Right.
Okay. Now you can have your personal opinions, and I'm not
just personally scared of it.
There you go.
For me, because
That's cool.
I've had bad experiences.
That's fine.
So, and I know that a lot of people would much rather be asleep.
Perfect. But from a doctor perspective, so I don't get people sending me hate stuff.
Well, you can cut that out.
No, I'm not going to cut it out. I just want to say that because
I got you.
Almost every patient I put in that chair says the same thing, and I have to caveat it because I just want to make sure people understand they're perfectly safe both ways. They're exactly equivalent in safety profile. in my opinion, why do I do it this way? It's actually harder for me.
Right, because,
but I like this fact of like, as you said, at 48 hours, I'm up, I put my head up, This is why I do it.
Yep.
So this is my mojo and why I do it that way. So I want my patients to get that same result.
Right. Gotcha.
What did it feel like? Did it hurt?
Not at all.
Did you take any pain pills?
I think I might have taken 2. It on a scale of 1 to 10, it was maybe a 2 or a 3. And it wasn't even a pain. It was just sore. I was at my son's baseball game 5 days later.
There you go. Okay.
I mean, and I was fine. I mean, I was so surprised. I was, taking selfies every day because I wanted to see the progression, sending them to my best friends, and they were shocked because, you see old school facelifts and sometimes they come out and, I mean, they look
wham, chicka, bam, bam.
Yes, they look like they've been in an accident, and I didn't look that way. Now, I mean, I can't speak for everyone else because everybody bruises differently, swells differently. For me, I woke up the next morning and I was fine. I felt fine, and I was so happy that I wasn't dealing with nausea from, any of the after effects, dealing with grogginess, anything like that.
All right. So here's the main reason I brought you here today. So you're almost 2 years after surgery. How do you feel? What's changed in 2 years? What do you feel about yourself? Like, this is what people want to know, right? So I'm sure like you take the dressings off, you get the initial, whoa, that everybody gets that.
I really didn't.
Yeah, you did. I saw the smile.
I mean,
okay.
It was not as bad as I expected.
No, what I mean the whoa is you see the whoa from the, oh my God, my neck is tight. You get the whoa factor.
Yes.
But at this point, 2 years out, okay, you're still staring in the mirror, you're doing your makeup. What do you feel? Like, how do you, every day, what do you feel?
I love my results. I feel like I look like me again.
Because you don't look 52.
Well, I hope I don't. I don't feel 52. I mean, some days I do, but today I don't. And I love my results. I mean, I still look like me. I feel like my makeup goes on better. I don't have, just everything. It definitely makes you feel good about yourself. I mean, we're older parents. Most of our friends' kids and the parents are, 30,
and you got to kick their ass.
And I'm right there with them. I mean, they, you know what I mean? I feel like I'm right there with them. And when I tell them how old because I'm not ashamed of how old I am. I mean, it's a privilege.
Right.
I'm not ashamed of it at all. And I mean, they don't believe me. And I'm like, why would I lie about that?
So, what's very interesting to me? So I had a girl, this was last week. She's also actually from New Orleans. And I did her facelift like almost 5 years ago, okay? And her mojo is this. She works in an elementary school. She's like an administrator in elementary school, okay? So I think she's in her mid-50s as well, and she's like, all the moms, like I'm in charge of first grade, second grade. So the moms are, late 20s, early 30s. Right? And then so she's like, they asked me, are you old enough to be an administrator? And she's like, you have no idea how old I am. Yeah, because but she's like, I look very similar to what they look like. So there's this. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, and it's funny when we meet new people, and they're like, oh, I'm getting so old. I'm 31. I just turned 30. And I have no problem saying, I said, guess how old I am? 34? I'm like, I'm 52. And they're like, no, you're not. And then my husband loves to broadcast it.
Nice.
He's like, guess how old my wife is? I'm like, stop. But yeah, I mean, I feel fine. I feel good in my skin. I've always felt good in my skin. I've never been one that, was like, oh gosh, I have to do this. I need this. I need that. But it was time. It was my 50th birthday. My husband was like, let's go on a trip. I said, no, this is what I want.
I remember that. I remember you telling me that.
Yep, this is what I want.
Yeah.
And the trip, we can wait, but this is what I want. And I love, I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I don't want looks to be her, most important thing. But I love that, her and my son, they tell me, Mommy, you're so pretty. Mommy, you're so pretty. You look so pretty today. And it's like, that's nice, because you want your kids to be proud of you. You know, you don't want to be the schlumpy, frumpy mom, I mean, you want your kids to be proud when you're going to their activities. And yeah, it's a good feeling.
So you said something, I was just going to ask you something about it. It escapes me. But you hit another point I think is very important, which is kids. Okay. So this is a question that has come up many times with some of my patients where they're like, I don't know what to tell my kids. I don't want to make my children into this monster where they think that they have to do surgery for everything, right? This is this is kind of that mommy guilt action happening on there. So one of my patients is a psychologist, and she said something very interesting. She's like, I'm very honest. I tell them this is why I did it, and the interesting part about it is, she goes, I think my kids are better. They actually are much more self-aware, where they go, hey, you know what? I'm proud of my mom that she didn't like something and she did something about it. You know, I mean, it was a very clean and neat, easy thing, as opposed to like, not dealing with the issue at hand.
And it's a healthy balance. I mean, you have to have, you have to go into this for the right reasons. And I feel like a lot of doctors, and I'm sure you, because I see how you connect with your patients. I'm sure you see patients that are probably maybe not doing it for the right reasons.
And then we just don't operate on them. Yeah.
And I mean, but for me, it was for no one else but myself.
Perfect.
And that's still how I feel.
I remember what I was going to ask you. You used a word, and this, I think every single facial rejuvenation patient who sits in that chair says the same series of words. Maybe they put it in different order. My outside didn't match my inside.
100%.
And it's very interesting because I don't even have to cue you. I don't have to say it. Everybody says the same thing. Like this, we have this little like separation of church and state, right? Our inside, we're just running 24 hours a day. And the outside, we look in the mirror and we go, whoa.
What happened?
Something doesn't jive.
Yeah.
Okay, I will divulge my answer because I have an answer up here. When you see yourself in the mirror, what is the first thing you see?
Well, I see my eyes. I like my eyes. I like my eyes. I like my smile. But I like my skin.
That's it. That's it. Your eyes. I wanted this is like that Rorschach ink blot test. So I'll tell you. Shall I tell you the number one and number two things that I see on you? Eyes and jawline.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That's what I see. Like I remember what you looked like. Eyes and jawline. First two things, like right off the bat. When I see you, boom. That's what I focus in on, which I think is pretty. It's pretty hot.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I like
All right. So you have open forum.
Okay.
Got 7.8 billion out of that. Half of that is what, 3.8 something billion women.
Right.
They're listening to you right now. What would you tell them?
I would tell them, go for it. If it's something that you want and you're ready to have a change for yourself, do it. I have given your name and your information to so many people. But just because we meshed well, I don't feel like a doctor needs to be your best friend, but I also feel like you want somebody that you feel like's on your team. And somebody that you can connect with, and somebody that sees your vision, and it's going to do what that the vision is the same.
Right. I think, so this is, Barb and I have lots of arguments about this. And it's not an argument. We're on the same boat about this. But here's, I think, something. Medicine has changed. Okay. I am super lucky. The guy who trained me, he's currently 87 or 88. So I got to learn from grand old daddy of medicine. Okay. So medicine used to be this thing where you do have a relationship with your patients. They're not patients. They're not number 10007. Okay. You're Nikki. You got a story. You got kids. You got a husband, right? And then you add to that, by the time this process is over, okay, I have met you. I've met your husband. I think you brought one of your children in on one of your visits. Okay. So I really end up integrating myself into your family. So you can't just hide in your office and go, oh, Nikki's going to come, I'll see her, chow, chow, meow, meow, because...
Or have to look at the chart to see what the patient's name is when you go in the room.
Like, I'll be honest, I don't remember all my patients' names.
Well, yeah.
But I'll remember their story.
Right,
That's what I
exactly.
remember.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like I still remember about your husband. I mean, I remember him coming in to pick you up, and he had the grumpiest face on earth.
Yeah, he was not happy with me.
He was, I think it was fear.
He was scared.
There was a lot of fear on his face, right? And then, so you got this bandage thing, and you know, he's just like, oh my God. It's like giving someone a new baby and go on, take care of it, you're discharged from the hospital. Then I remember him bringing you back the next day, you're talking and you're doing this, and there was like, he had come from DEFCON 5 to DEFCON 1 in 12 hours.
Exactly.
Right? And there was this like, okay, she's okay, you know? So there was, so you end up kind of meeting all these people. It's very, I'll talk for myself, it's really hard for me to just be like, okay, you know? So, because you guys impact my life as well. So.
Exactly. I agree. And like I said, I love that this is the choice that I made. I love when I made it. I would also say, I was thinking about that on the way here. I feel like some people wait too long, you know, maybe because they're scared or for whatever reasons. I say, you know what, or they listen to all their friends that say, oh, you don't need this. If it's something you want to do, do it. I mean, life is short, do it. Yeah. You know,
I mean, I think,
if it's feasible and you can, don't be persuaded by outside noise. Do what makes you happy.
I think that's the take home that every woman out here says, and I really respect you guys for having that kind of, you know, carpe diem attitude to the world. You know, because I think it's important.
Yeah, I mean, you want to look great the rest of your life. I mean, why not do it whenever you know, if you can. Do it.
And enjoy it for the longest period.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching Nikki's journey. If you like this content and want to see more content like this, please hit the subscribe button. If you have questions, don't hesitate to give us a call. Thank you so very much again.